If you're not familiar with my background, I basically, I'm kind of a bit of a hybrid. I left school when I was 18, and I basically kind of fell into all these things that I did. My first job was working on the shop floor in Gucci, and I don't really believe in traditional education, and I'm going to show you why.
Every country on earth at the moment is reforming public education. There are two reasons for it. The first of them is economic. People are trying to work out, how do we educate our children to take their place in the economies of the 21st century? How do we do that? Given that we can't anticipate what the economy will look like at the end of next week, as the recent turmoil is demonstrating. How do we do that? The second, though, is cultural. Every country on earth is trying to figure out, how do we educate our children so they have a sense of cultural identity and so that we can pass on the cultural genes of our communities while being part of the process of globalization. How do we square that circle? The problem is they're trying to meet the future by doing what they did in the past. And on the way, they're alienating millions of kids who don't see any purpose in going to school. When we went to school, we were kept there with a story, which was if you worked hard and did well and got a college degree, you would have a job. Our kids don't believe that. And they're right not to, by the way. You're better having a degree than not, but it's not a guarantee anymore. And particularly not if the route to it marginalizes most of the things that you think are important about yourself. Some people say we have to raise standards as if this is a breakthrough. You know, like, really, yes, we should.
So it's twofold, really. The reason for that video is, one is I think it's a really interesting approach to the things that we do in the world, and you know, how we change businesses that are old businesses that are set in their ways, and the way that we learn in consumer education. And you'll see later from Tunepics that, you know, music is such a powerful way for people to express themselves. Social media, you know, is something we spend a huge amount of time doing, but there isn't a really definite purpose to why we're doing it, and that's something that we want to adjust, which you'll see later in the vision, kind of how we could relate to the way we actually do good with the time that we spend on the internet. So I was very lucky. My first job was working on the shop floor at Gucci. I ended up working in Tom Ford's office. I used to bring him his newspaper and his coffee in the morning. And I was very good at observing things and seeing things around me. And then they bought Stella McCartney, and I kind of grew through that company. And then I got headhunted by Burberry, which is just like the most disastrous company at the time. And I never really even thought about why I took the job. I just felt that Christopher had this amazing vision, and it was going to be a really incredible company. And you know, they talked a lot about emotional intelligence and how we could change the way people thought, not just with, you know, having a great business strategy, but having a really good understanding of how you connect with people. And I guess, you know, the thing that I brought to the table was, you know, I'm this person that always sees, you know, opportunities that don't really exist, but I had a big obsession with digital emotion. So people in that category, you know, this is like 5-6 years ago, didn't really understand digital. It's still something that luxury fears. And you know, really what we did is we went about communicating with people in a way that had never been done before. And what was more difficult for everyone to grasp was that we weren't really communicating with our customer. We were communicating with our customer probably in about 20 years. But it completely changed the way people saw the brand. And the stuff that we were looking at was, you know, if you take an example, this is a brand that's like on the brink, you know, same thing as Apple. There's nowhere else to go. It's either out or up. And I think sometimes that's the best place for a company to be. When you're successful, I kind of feel that innovation goes in cycles of like 3 years. Okay, and companies do well, and then they go, oh, well, that's working, let's not change anything, right? And then they forget all the reasons why they became successful. And the challenge when you're you know, a good-sized business that's kind of growing at, you know, typically, you know, 2, 3, 4%, is looking at those areas where you can really push the boundaries and change. And not many people want to do that, right? Because the person at the top probably loses their bonus, and you know, everybody, no one wants to rock the boat. And it's a really, really interesting insight. That's why you see it in companies that come into the market and they go to the top. New companies, people that are almost bust. You know, startups taking the opportunity. So, you know, I use this as a case study a lot. I mean, geography, sorry if anyone majored in it, is probably the most boring thing in the world. And when you're at school, no one listens to the teacher. You know, no one wants to hear about a volcano for 3 hours. However, these are the best-selling, most downloaded DVD series of all time, right? And I will quite happily sit and watch a volcano program now because it's curated beautifully, because it's got music, because it's emotion. And so it's all about, you know, if you can make the most boring subject in the world interesting, then I think you can do it with anything. So, you know, I would go around and kind of like say to the Burberry guys, you know, like I was made like a vice president of Burberry. I was like, you know, on the top management board with, say, like, you know, 15, 20 people running a couple of £1 billion company. You know, and I'm just saying, let's just do things that are really beautiful. Let's do things that touch people. Like, you know, who cares about selling a raincoat? You know, you want to sell, this is like the kind of thing I'd present to the board. You want to sell the magic behind the coating. And I think when you get people in an emotional state, you completely change their purchase behavior. And I think that's interesting at any price point. You know, if you want to sell someone something, you've got to put them in a position where they're like, you know, you're taking away all the reasons why they should or they shouldn't do it. You're creating something magical. So I'm always trying to create a magical environment. So this is just an example of what I said to my team. We were looking at a way to, the weather is the most searched subject in the world. So you're Burberry, you think like you're searching, you know, it's raining tomorrow. Okay, well, what could you sell alongside that? You know, an umbrella, gloves, a coat. Yeah, pretty big deal. This is meant to get people to think about, we don't just want to sell coats. We don't just want to, you know, people need something for a reason. You want to create an environment where it's like, I want that thing, I don't need that thing. So it's just it's an insight, it's an inspiration. So again, you know, you're just trying to create a feeling in people. You want them to think about things in a different way. And it was always my objective. You know, I never ever spent any time looking at what Gucci or Prada or any competitors were doing. And, you know, I go and give talks to companies and I always say to them, like, you know, you have to be aware of your competitors, but you should never ever look at them. You know, you guys should never be saying, oh my God, did you see that thing that the Times did? Or, you know, you should be saying, look at what this brand's doing. You know, look at how Google did this with the doodle. But you want to be shooting for the best companies in the world that create the best experiences, because that's the only thing that people care about. You know, we're moving towards a future where you're going to have, you know, only a few companies will be able to survive. There's no question about it. You know, you look at retail. For me, Amazon is the beginning of that, right? Not every company right now is relevant to sell in that environment because it doesn't look right, it doesn't feel good. If you're a luxury brand, you'd never be on there. But the bottom line is that they're making the space available, you know, smaller. We're going to search for things, we're going to get them how we get them. We don't need to go to 100 shops. I can imagine, you know, walking down High Street Kensington in 20 years' time. There's no way there's going to be that many stores. It's just not sustainable. Rents, and we're not shopping that way anymore. So, you know, you have to look at the same thing from your brand and that point of view. If you're following or looking at competition, there's no way you're going to be better than them. There's no way you're going to be the best in the market. So I always look at other brands. This is my favorite quote from the whole time that we were there, because, you know, the things that I identified that I felt as in my strategy that would transform the business were music, weather, Britishness, and digital. And I mean, it's kind of like, you know, the culmination of everything. I've taken loads of examples out here because I thought you'd get bored, but, you know, we launched Art of the Trench, which was this, you know, incredible social network where you could upload your own trench coat, where it was based on people sending their letters in. You know, everybody gets their trench coat handed down from their mother, their father. It's probably one of the most sustainable pieces of clothing in the world, maybe only Levi jeans. And I think that it's just, you know, it's about always knowing, like, what's your point of view, what's your audience, and how can you create something special. So I then went to be the Chief Marketing Officer of Topshop. It was too difficult to say no to Sir Philip Green. He locked me in a room and said, you're going to sign a contract today. So I did, got out his checkbook. And I kind of sat with him. I said, look, you know, what's really interesting is your company's kind of got like an audience of, like, you know, 15 to 25-year-olds as their core audience. Even, you know, every single person across every single age shops in Topshop. It's not a global company. But, you know, the girl who buys a £5, £6 pair of socks, she still wants to feel like it's magic. And that is an expression that should go across every company, right? When someone buys something, how do you make them feel like they're getting something way more? You know, if you look at a luxury business model, they sell 70–80% of their revenues are perfumes and sunglasses and all the other crap that we buy for Christmas and put in stockings for people. They hardly ever sell any of those things that go down the runway or all the magic and the drama and the theatre they create, but they sell all the things at the bottom of the period as a consequence of all the dreams that they sell to people. And that's a massive, massive thing. So I'm always trying to get people to that. So I look at his fashion show, and Topshop has a fashion show. It started as a grace and favour thing because they invested in London Fashion Week, but actually, didn't really feel right for them to sit on a scale against these big designers. And they had about 52,000 people watching it. So you got like maybe 500 to 800 people in a room, and over the course of 2 weeks, 10, 20,000 people will watch a live stream. And I was like, this is crazy, you've got like millions of kids online all over the world. They're obsessed with all these Demi Lovato's and, Taylor Swift. Like, let's tap into the show. And so I draw on a piece of paper that the show's in the middle, but I don't really like fashion that much. I don't care that much about it. So I just enjoyed the medium. I enjoyed the stuff that went around it. So I say to them, if your show's in the middle and you've got music, you've got fashion, you've got technology, you've got the beauty, you've got, all these different strands, you've got the people who are attending, all of a sudden you're relevant to like 50, 60 audiences. So I'm like 4 days into my job. I go and meet with my friend at Facebook, and I was like, let's create like our own, widget so you can capture the look on your own, like when you screenshot on your iPhone so you can share them instantly. Let's make every single part of the interface, when you touch it, it just shares onto your social network saying, Justin's watching the Topshop show. Let's go to Apple and make sure you can download the music, because everyone listens to the music from the show. Let's make it really fun. So we did. What I wanted to do was just get them to realize that, if you create like this whole world around something, and you can probably really feel just even from that short video, like how global we made a moment, and overnight you can completely transform the company. We were taking 50, 60,000 a week in China, in a market that we didn't have any e-commerce business in. It's just about just finding a way of really engaging audiences. And I know particularly the Daily Mail are very good at doing that. Like every time I go to New York in the subway, I see like adverts for the Daily Mail. I'm so confused. I'm like, how come the Daily Mail's in New York? It's every company should be a global company. There's no reason why not. And then I'm going to just share this with you as like a last example of Topshop before I talk about Tunepics. And you can see already how important music is, and that the feeling that it evokes in you when you're watching any of those videos or whatever it is. It's always about setting an environment. At Christmas, they used to spend, a couple of 100,000 in one store. And I was a bit confused because I was like, it's Oxford Street, it's massive. I don't know if you've ever been there. That store is literally, it's like the Vatican at peak time. And the place is always packed. So I was like, I don't even know if you need to spend that money. I think you're probably getting it back anyway. You're probably losing that money, if anything. So let's not do the event in the store. Let's not do any Christmas activity in the store on top of what we're doing. Let's take the money and spend it on a digital viral that gets the whole world talking about it. So it's not just about one store. They'd spend a lot of time saying like, what's going on in Leeds? What's going on in Liverpool this week? And I'd be like, if you look at the top 50 countries in the world and you look at the top 50 cities in the world, they account for pretty much, 80% of the world's, traffic, revenue, internet sales, all of those things. And it's fascinating when you start looking at the circles between like New York, London, Paris, Los Angeles, San Francisco, like whatever you want to look at. There's extremely unbelievable patterns of spending, wealth, demographics around universities, whatever it is. It's kind of fascinating. So I said to him, I'm going to call Kate Bosworth, who was a friend of mine that I knew from Stella, and we're going to reenact this scene from the Fabulous Baker Boys. Again, it's like a really, like my friend from YSL called me and said, this is almost like a luxury video. It's unbelievable. They're always selling the dream. And my data person had kind of like been sitting with us, and I was like, I want to do something really cool with her because we're paying her, X amount of money. We've got her for 2 days while we're filming her. Let's do something really fun. We should try and get her to do something. So I was reading this article by Michelle Thomas, who teaches languages. I don't know if you've ever downloaded it, but it's really good. You should get it. And you can learn a language with him in about 3-4 weeks. So you could learn Russian and Italian. And the premise is that he says if you knew 250 words, you could read the whole of the New York Times if you knew those key 250 words. And obviously he helps you to build sentences around that. So I use this as an algorithm thought, and I give it to my data guy, and I say, how many names are on our database? And she goes, 11 million. This is probably a good one for a lot of you guys with all your subscribers. She goes, 11 million. And I go, okay, cool. So how many of those names are the same name? She comes back and she goes, what do you mean? I was like, well, you know, of those names, how many of those names would be the same name? She's like, oh, wow, you know, like half the database is the same name. It's really interesting. So if I took the top 100 names, what percentage of the database would that come for? Okay, so she goes away, she comes back, takes a while. And she says, oh, you know, like 2.5 million names are only 100 names. I was like, yeah, it's really interesting. I thought that might happen. So we get Kate Bosworth to film just little segments. She's sitting down on the sofa and she does 100 little things. Hi, Emily, happy Christmas. Hi, Jane, happy Christmas, okay? And then we cut it into this thing with this Christmas video that we've made, sending a personal message to 500,000 Janes and 100,000 Marys. It's like 4 days before Christmas, and they're like, oh my God, Kate Bosworth said my name, right? Just at the moment, you get them emotional, and you get them like, you know, you've got them there, just at the moment where their propensity to buy is so high, right? And it doesn't matter. They're even, like, I found, like, we trended on Twitter, Kate Bosworth was trending on Twitter, and Topshop Christmas was trending on Twitter. And they were all like, I want to look like Kate, she's amazing, she says my name, oh my God. And there's a couple of them saying like, I know that she's done this for other people, but it doesn't matter, it feels like it's mine. It's just an emotional connection to something, you know, and you give your time, you give your money to companies, you know, it's a big commitment, it's a relationship, right? You know, if I buy the Daily Mail every day, I'm in a relationship with you, so what do I get back? It's a small thing, but I just think it's interesting, and it was a big kind of lesson for like how you leverage, you know, every partnership you do, every sponsorship you do, you know, what's the value that you can get that's an emotional value. So I spent a lot of time studying music in my career. I spent a lot of time using music to transform people's emotions, to get them in this kind of heightened state of, you know, let me have all your money. And, you know, one of the things that fascinated me the most was when Adele reached someone like you. It was obviously a massive hit and it was extraordinary, and then she did a performance at the Brit Awards, I don't know if you saw it, and she made herself cry with her own performance. It's obviously a very deep, you know, emotional song for her. But there's an actual, you know, there is amazing amounts of scientific research which we did research on and looked into before we made Tunepics. And the actual, you know, the reasons why these things happen to us are kind of amazing. So, you know, sex, drugs, and music give you this massive release of dopamine, and it completely changes your state. So I can play you one song and I can completely transform your state of mind. You could be sad right now, I could play you a happy song and I could reverse that and play your song. It's a very, very powerful medium. So we do a lot of research into the heart and the brain and colour. So I was walking down the road and I took this picture in my phone, and I went into my iPhone library and I pulled up Paolo Nutini's Autumn Leaves, of course. And I just, like, this was like the moment.
Autumn leaves under frozen souls.
It's not quite the same, is it, without music? It's a pretty good idea. I was like, I should make this. I should do this. Why does this not exist? So I started looking into it. I started researching. I was like, this is a good idea. I wonder if someone's done it. I wonder why someone hasn't done it. This is going to be a nightmare as well. So we did the early research. We were like, you know, these numbers are kind of extraordinary. So you've got two very prolific pieces of behavior. You've got people uploading photos like crazy. You've got people downloading songs. And if you add streaming to that, it actually quadruples. So streaming's obviously in the ascendancy. So I was very fascinated with that opportunity. I was like, this is really interesting. So I look into it, and it's a nightmare. You know, I've had this idea like 3 years ago. Like, this whole space is so complicated, you know, and you start going against like Facebook and Instagram, and then on the other side you've got all the music industry and the record labels. Kind of like, well, this is going to be tough. And I don't know how to code, you know, so I've got to tell someone else my idea. I'm like, no, I can't tell someone else. They're going to go and tell Facebook, or they're going to sell it to someone. So I spent like a year, like, you know, if you ever read ideas about, you know, books on entrepreneurs and people that launch things, it's so lonely because you can't really share that much with anyone. You know, you're very fearful of who's going to, you know, steal the idea or make it better, especially when you see, like, you know, the movie with Mark Zuckerberg. And so you spend a lot of time trying to figure out, like, are you going crazy? Is it a good idea? Is it not a good idea? Should you give it up? Should you do it? You know, very, very difficult. And then I kind of spent a lot of time looking at iTunes and Spotify and realizing that, you know, going back to the emotion piece, you know, I do a lot of work with will.i.am, and we talk to him about two things. One is, you know, when you look at a list, of music, you lose all of the emotion, you lose all of the magic. You know, the song Adele wrote was not meant to just live in a list like Someone Like You, blah, 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 and like 10 other things. You don't feel the magic. When you put that song with contextual emotion, like the Autumn Leaves picture, if I take a picture of all of us now and I put a song, you know, it means something to all of us. You know, you'll laugh about it, you'll joke about it, you'll be moved by it, whatever you'll feel, but you'll feel something. And I think that was the big kind of thing for me. And the second one was that musicians spend a huge amount of time, you know, on social networks, and they tweet their new songs and they post their new songs. But there's no correlation to music. There's no like, you know, there's a link and you click on that link and it goes to another link and you go to another link. But this platform, I think in the future, and it's already happening now because we're meeting with all the top music executives. You know, imagine if you know, Rihanna comes and says, "I want to launch my new album only on Tunepics," because she can put that picture of like herself in a bikini or in her studio or whatever she wants to do with her song and express the exact mood of what she was trying to create. And you can download it, you can buy it, you can stream it, you can get it straight away. So I think that's going to redefine it. But I said to them all, you know, I said to Will, I was like, you get like 10,000 retweets when you say my new song's out in iTunes, but what actually happens from there? You know, what does it mean to you? Like if 10,000 people retweet it. So we put the emotion wheel in, which hopefully you saw in the build-up. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute and why it's so important. The background to it as well is that my mother passed away when I was 19, and someone gave me Eva Cassidy's Fields of Gold, and it was one of my first posts actually, in the 17th of May. And we launched on the 22nd, so it was a pre-post. And I always say that album saved my life because it gave me an opportunity to grieve, it gave me an opportunity to express myself, and I felt that was really important for this generation coming through of very, you know, whether we agree with it or not, they're very heavy about their thoughts and their emotions, and they find it difficult to articulate that, and I thought that the platform would really allow them to do that. So all these amazing celebrities just start using it. It's really scary. You know, I wake up every day and I've got like a tweet from like Richard Branson being like, "This is such a great app," or, you know, like, you know, a famous artist like a Chrissy Hynde or someone. And they're all creating really beautiful profiles and pages, and it's just, you know, kind of gone a little bit crazy. And this has driven a lot of the engagement. So MTV joined and started getting all these people on there doing like playlists, and a lot of bands have been inviting us down to like their gigs and saying, "Will you come backstage and do them from the official Tunepics account?" Ella Henderson went to #1 when she launched on our platform, so she just did a competition saying, "Can everyone use my new song, and put your pictures on it?" But the reason why the data is going to be so important is because when you start doing this with people's behavior, that button in the future could be anything. It could be like, buy the outfit in this thing. It could be, you know, you recently listened to Adele, she's in concert in Hammersmith next week, buy tickets from Ticketmaster. So the buy button, if you haven't seen it, is amazing. But the reason why we think these are going to be so powerful, so there's 16 emotions. You can leave whatever you want, but we've tried to cover like the top indexing words in the world across every emotion. Very difficult, trust me. Two amazing things are happening. One is people are discovering new music through their friends. So you put a picture up with a song that maybe I've never heard before. And then I go, wow, that's really cool. And the two most powerful forms of marketing, as you guys probably know, are your friends and the people you look up to, celebrities, VIPs, whatever. So this platform is basically, that's exactly what this platform is. It's those two forms. And the second is that people are discovering music through what they see. So they take a picture and they type in clouds, and then they discover every single song about clouds. So I did one when I was on holiday a few weeks ago, and I did Blue Sky, and it came up with a song called Shoot the Blue Bullet by U2, which I'd never heard before. So it's a totally new way to discover music, which I think is really, really interesting. The data is going to change everything, because what we've got is we've got people curating the world's music for us. So it's almost like a Wikipedia of emotions for music. So all the people are adding a feeling to the song that they post. So like this Adele song makes me sad. This, you know, Sky Full of Stars actually was the #1 sad song this week. I don't know why, by Coldplay. So they're creating this amazing database of emotional, contextual information around music. And the second is, I can go to Rihanna's management, or I can go to One Direction's management, as we did last week, and I can say, people in Taiwan, listen to your music at 4 p.m. and it makes them feel inspired. This specific track. I mean, the value of that data is just incredible. It's actually very, very exciting, because we're going to know, you know, how a whole country is feeling. Like, imagine if I can share with you and say, you know, Brazil is feeling happy during a World Cup game, you know, when they're winning, and then they're sad when they go out and they're listening to this genre of music. It's really, really interesting. And I think in terms of people's spend and behavior habits, it could be fascinating. So the thing that I really want to focus on with the app is that I think that most apps that we use only use one of our senses. You know, we look, you know, if you think about what you can do with touch, so we're experimenting with a lot of things at the moment. We're patenting stuff around, you know, your fingerprint. Imagine, you know, like, so you can read the temperature. What can you use that for? You can gain people's mood based on that. When you add music into a picture, you get this kind of trigger inside of you. So this is part of the research. But imagine if I show you a picture of you with your father when you were like 5 years old. You can probably remember what he smells like. And I think that's a really, really interesting thing. And there are, it might sound crazy, but there are ways to actually create smell within digital environments, and you will see them in the future. But I just think it becomes really interesting when you start making the environment more than just an app, more than just an environment. I think it's really cool. And we actually think that we're going to curate the world's moments and experiences through emotion and music, because we're already working on some things. But imagine what this looks like in a physical space, how it lives. You know, in China, it's the year of the sheep. So imagine doing a whole exhibit with emotions in coloured wool. You know, there's so many really beautiful possibilities. But, you know, we think that we can totally redefine, these are the two in the middle, the way that people communicate and share these things. So it's very exciting. Hopefully you will have the time to download it and share it and get 10 friends on there. No pressure. But thank you for having me. When we launched, we had about 500 articles. So I think the name part's been less of an issue. The people who've supported my career have still, you know, been, you know, people loved it, and the celebrities I've worked with down the years have all used it, and we haven't had to spend any money on brand or marketing. So that part has been amazing, touch wood. What you really struggle with is just not having anyone to fall back on, and the cost of everything. You know, you're like, you know, you're used to being able to expense like something for 50, 100, £1,000. All of a sudden, every single pound counts, and you've got to really think like, okay, we're going to go to Glastonbury this weekend. It costs £2,000. It's great content, but the question is like, is it the best use of money? You know, like that's like another 3 laptops for the new people coming in. It's like you have to question every single decision. So that's really hard, and just, you know, when you have an idea and you follow it. It's a very difficult thing to do, right? Everybody has good ideas, but going and leaving your job and like quitting everything, you know, I was pretty well remunerated in my previous jobs, and all of it, you know, I don't take a salary anymore. So you have to weigh up whether you want to do it or not. And this, you know, there's always a chance that, you know, that we're growing so quickly right now. You know, our Series A funding is going to be between 2 and 4 million, which we're doing at the moment. We've had 2 or 3 offers from the US. We've had 1 offer from the UK. Very, very hard to find funding here. But if we keep growing at the rate we're going, and we don't agree a deal with someone, we won't be able to afford the bills. You know, it's like a catch-22. So we can make ourselves bust by being successful. You know, every day our server cost goes up by like £2,000-3,000. So it's a good problem to have. But, you know, until someone agrees to sign a piece of paper saying they want to keep growing to the next level, you just never know. So the uncertainty is definitely something difficult. But I suppose I'm always confident that, you know, I can do something else. What's the worst that can happen? Right, you have to go and get a job. Yeah, I mean, some of the stuff we detailed, like you know, we've had the V&A already ask us if we'd like to do an emotional display of people's emotions around pictures, and we've done a little bit of work with Dazed and Confused around maybe having a room with 50 Tunepics on the wall that played, and you could leave your emotion on them. So I think, you know, there's definitely some fun things, but we want to try and get it to a place where it really adds value. The emotion wheel is something we patented because I think it could live in other areas. It might be the thing that people, you know, when you build a startup in the technology space, you want to make sure, like, so discovery of music is a really interesting space for us. But if, for example, I build an algorithm within there, like, you know, you can use Siri, for example. You know, what was the song on the end credits of Lost in Translation? And then it gives you the song to choose. If you start building technology within your technology, you become more and more valuable. If you think about the way Google organizes data, you know, there's a lot of opportunities for us to organize people's conversations and things around music. So, yeah, I would like it to be everything, physical, digital, and I think you have to be open for it to manifest and for it to grow. For it to be a social network alone is not going to be enough for us. You know, I was talking about, you know, we call it social purpose, not social media. So UNICEF gets like 100,000 likes on their pictures every day. Imagine if in a year, you know, we had the bargaining power to go to Apple and say, you know, we want to give all of the revenue that those artists make and negotiate with them to charities. You know, every time you liked a picture, it would mean something. You know, that charity could make a revenue stream of £1 million a year just from people's interactions. I think that's the kind of stuff that we want to get to, because I just think we waste a lot of time online. You know, it doesn't mean anything. So that's the long-term goal, is that the company actually has a purpose for how people consume and share content. I wasn't going to do it for a long time, and I was working. Brian Chesky was trying to hire me, the guy who founded Airbnb, and he wanted me to come and be his CMO, and he still tried to hire me like 1 month before this. So if it doesn't work out, I'll know I made a mistake, because they're about to float and make loads of money, no problem. And we had dinner in San Francisco, and he's like, you gotta come. He's like, well, and I said, look, I'm going to show you this. I'm working on this, and he's like, wow, that's really cool. And he's like, look, you know, if it's your dream, you have to follow it. But he'd said to me 6 months earlier. The reason why I went and started and did the company was, he said to me, you know, if you, the only difference between me and the next guy is I just went and did it. And I think if you do believe in something and you have a conviction, you have to follow it. There's always a chance that it will fall down on other parameters like funding or support or not having the right team members. But in general, if you follow a passion, I think you'll do it. In terms of buy-in, I kind of funded a lot of the beginning stuff myself, and then we got an angel investor. So we do a lot of decks like this, and we take people through all the kind of the vision and the roadmap. So, you know, I think if you prepare everything the way that we have, and we've got like every single, you know, thing about the future of the platform, how we can grow it. We've done all the market research. Like, you know, if for example we bring in languages, the top 13 languages will give us like 90% of the internet. So, you know, Instagram doing languages took them from like 2 million to 10 million users. There's loads of things like that. It's just really about just doing all the preparation, and I think for us, we think it's a unique prospect. You know, not having a competitor is quite a big one, but you know, there's always tomorrow. So you have to. We bank on being the best, not the first. But at the moment, we're both.